Hey, Carl here to say that Music to Code By is now an app called Music to Flow By. Now you can listen to the tracks on your phone with offline capability. The first 3 tracks are free, and the entire catalog is available by subscription with a new track arriving every month. Just go to musictoflowby.com for all the links. Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
Still in the terrarium in Seattle.
We like it here.
Yeah.
It's our friendly place. We feel safe.
I do kind of feel like a newt in a cage, though. It's very humid here.
Me into a newt. I got better.
It's a little bit humid. There's mealworms in the corner. All right.
You talking about?
I don't know.
It's the last day of builds.
Exactly. Last day. This is our last
afternoon. Yeah. It's
Right.
starting to show.
My coffee clearly isn't working. So we have, of course, Mikayla Hutchinson here. We're going to talk about all the stuff that she's been up to. But first, we have something interesting to talk about. It's called Better Know Framework.
All right, dude, what do you got?
This is a pretty cool video, and I know that you're watching it right now. You got to sort of scroll into it about.
I'm a big
10
fan
minutes.
of Destin and Smarter Every Day.
Yeah,
so
Smarter
as soon
Every
as
Day.
I saw that you had him in, I'm like, oh, it's awesome.
So it's a
cool.
haptic glove, and
Wow, it's
inspired.
not pretty.
No, it looks like.
Yeah, you are wearing Borg on your arm.
That's right. It looks like a Klingon weapon accessory. But basically,
Geiger would have looked at this guy. You've gone too far.
I read Ready Player One. I'm sure you did
Yeah,
too.
of course. I haven't
and-
seen the movie though.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but the haptic gloves were sort of featured prominently in there.
Important part of making VR.
Yeah.
Really that thing. They talk about a lot of that nausea from VR is that you don't see your hand.
Right.
So
yeah.
bringing your hands in, but then also giving your hands the sensations. It's pretty powerful stuff. So clearly people are building it.
Yeah, and they have this little model where there's a little farm, and you can squeeze the clouds to make it rain and make sunflowers grow, and
You know
you
what
can
this
pick
means
up
now?
rocks and chuck them.
If they've got a haptic glove,
No.
it means that anybody can have a haptic cow.
I knew you were going to bring up the haptic cow. Oh, the
Years
haptic
ago,
cow.
on a very different show, when we were finding bad things on the internet.
No, you were finding bad
it was
things
my
on the
job.
That's right.
There was a veterinary training device called the Haptic Cow.
That's amazing.
It was for
Everybody needs,
practicing
because you don't want to get.
palpation.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hurt the cow. You want to
Yeah.
actually learn. So how do you? Now the funny part, of course, is that I have the family in New Zealand. They have a dairy farm.
Yeah.
And so they don't just give milk forever. You have to let them have calves. And the only way to be sure they're going to have calves is to get inseminated. And if you actually make the bull do the work, bulls injure cows. And so artificial insemination is the normal practice
Right.
for
Yep.
preparing your dairy cows. And
So we'll just leave it at that.
it requires some
Move on.
haptic work. I'm just saying.
Anyway, I thought this was a really cool
It's
video.
very cool. Yes, and it's got nothing to do with cows at all.
No.
I have hijacked your awesome topic. I forgive you. I forgive you.
And forget you.
I apologize. I feel bad. I don't feel that bad. I feel a little bad.
I'm sorry, people. We'll try to be more professional.
Doing our best. We're professionals here.
Okay.
1,540 shows. We almost have this figured out.
Who's talking to us today, Richard?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1540, oddly enough. One on building UI on the web using OUI, that's OOUI,
Yes.
with Frank Krieger, who's been here with us in the podcasting space doing
Pleasure to meet him.
shows for a great guy. Huh? Yeah, he works on Merge Conflict with our mutual friend, all of our friends, James Montemagno.
Yes.
And lots of great comments, of course. OUI's amazing,
Yes, it is.
astonishing technology, and you can see the reaction to the brilliance of Frank in these comments. Juan Pablo Tarquino said something that might be easy to miss because of the excited discussion about the WebAssembly side of this is the other way that we handles page rendering and flow. Frank mentioned that we could also render the final HTML on the server side, somewhat approaching the problem of web app development like ASP.NET Web Forms did, or at least attempted to. but this time with WebSockets. Ironically, given all the excitement about the client-side rendering, there are groups even in the JavaScript world that recognize that some scenarios are better handled by rendering on the server side, and certainly you can look at some of the stuff that React.js has done recently around doing server-side rendering as an example. So kudos to Frank for addressing both sides of the rendering issue. And we really didn't explore server-side rendering.
No, we didn't.
We were, Juan calls us out. We were totally smitten with client-side rendering.
We were just blown away.
Totally. And of course, everything WebAssembly seems to be super cool these days.
Yeah.
So Juan, thanks for injecting a little reality into our conversation, and happy to hook you up with a copy of Music to Code By. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Google Plus and Facebook. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code By.
And it's music, and you can code by it. That's what it is.
I've been there.
Yeah.
It was a great experience.
Definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm at Carl Franklin. He's at Rich Campbell. Send us a tweet. We palpate them.
With our haptic gloves. I got a good grip on that Twitter, and now I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to move on.
Wouldn't that be cool if you could actually feel data?
Feel the internet?
Yeah, feel the internet.
There you go.
.com.
Little internet groping.
Don't go there.
Okay.
Please.
Ben.
All right.
Yeah, you know what it's going to take to make that haptic glove really real, huh?
No.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. So Mikayla Hutchinson is here. She's a program manager on Visual Studio for Mac and the Xamarin platform. She's been working on mobile and web developer tools for more than a decade and is passionate about user experience and inclusivity. In her free time, she enjoys game development and silversmithing. That takes a steady hand. That's not easy.
And you're talking to the guy with the big burn on his arm right now.
Oh, how did that happen?
I'd rather not talk about it.
He's been,
there was this cow.
It's a cook's burn.
Uh-huh.
The dude's been cooking constantly for the stuff he's been doing over on 2 Keto Dudes.
Yeah,
and as soon as I saw it, it's like, that is a cook's burn.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing so much, you finally drag your arm across something.
I was using a torch to flambe some creme brulee, and it accidentally slipped over onto my... No, that didn't happen.
I was wrestling a shark. It's like, now you stuck your arm on something hot.
So tell me about silversmithing. Why were you drawn to that?
I really enjoy the way that it combines kind of the artistic side of designing things and the technical side of figuring out how to turn them into real things and then fabricating them.
It is a problem that we only organize electrons. Every so often you actually want to move some protons around as well.
So I noticed the pendant on your chain. Did you make that, the Visual Studio pendant?
Logo?
Yes, I made that for the Visual Studio for Mac launch last year.
Nice.
Wow. I made it the night before my flight.
That's so cool.
But now you've made it purple, and you're clearly a purple fan. The hair's purple, lipstick's purple. Where'd the silver's not purple?
So that is purple enamel.
Oh, okay.
So I use a couple of different shades of enamel to get that gradient. So I started off by making kind of the base out of argentium, which is a silver alloy, silver and germanium, a little bit of that semiconductor in there gives it some interesting properties. It's easy to fuse it together. So I cut the logo out, fused that onto the base, and then filled it in with enamel.
Cool.
Wow, that's neat.
Nice work.
Yeah, very
well
nice.
Done. So you need to wear your own stuff too.
Yeah. The Visual Studio for the Mac, are you making a pendant for that? Would it look any different, I guess?
That's a good question. It
would look more pretentious, that's for sure.
There you go. Do you have to wear a turtleneck to wear it? Is that what it is? Okay.
Well,
Are we still mocking Mac people?
Well, I was working on the expo the other day, and someone came up and told me well, you're a Mac user. That explains why you're so well dressed.
There you go.
Nice. Excellent.
So
what is new in Visual Studio for Mac land?
So we released our 7.5 release on Monday morning, along with the 7.6 preview.
Cool.
Okay.
And the features that we're super excited about are that we have Razer in IntelliSense and TypeScript in IntelliSense for all your ASP.NET Core 2 projects.
Wow, that's great.
And of course, Visual Studio for Mac has its origins with Xamarin.
It does,
but
yes.
now, you're really turning into more and more full-fledged, this is Studio for everything.
We've been working with a lot of the other teams inside of the Visual Studio group. So the Razer and TypeScript functionality were ported over by the same teams that built them for the Windows version.
Nice. So that's cool. They have a broader team working on it, and it's just like it's becoming Visual Studio. It does all of the things.
Mm-hmm. Can you also build Mac desktop apps with it?
Yes, so you can use Xamarin Mac, which is a C# binding to the Mac Cocoa APIs, and that's based on the same technology as Xamarin iOS.
Very good.
Mac is just another one of the options.
Yep, and we actually use that to build VS for Mac itself.
I like that. You know, I've been saying this a few
good.
times over the course of the past few days. It's like every time I see Microsoft consuming their own stuff, making it better as a consequence. You know, we all benefit. If you're not willing to consume it, then why should we?
Right.
So that's cool.
I've always found, though, that you sort of have to have some cursory knowledge of how to build Mac desktop software. If you're a Windows guy, you know, and coming into, I want to build a Mac version of this desktop app. It's not like WinForms. It's a little different.
Yeah, well, that is something we're very passionate about, is making sure that we have something that feels like it belongs on macOS. Because folks who use Macs are using them because they like that experience. So we want it to fit into that experience and behave the way that they expect.
Can we talk a little bit, because I haven't used any Mac software in years now. What are the metaphorical differences? What makes a Mac app versus a Windows app? Last time I heard, you guys have more than one mouse button now, so clearly you're out of control.
Yeah, well, most folks use MacBooks, so you have the
touchpad.
The touchpad with the 2-finger click.
Yeah.
But yeah, right click is pretty common now. So one of the main differences is that you only have one instance of each app. So on Windows, for example, you might open up 3 different copies of an app for different things you have open in it. Whereas on the Mac, you just get the one dock icon, which is your app, and then one window for each of the things you have open in that. There's also all of the key bindings are different. There's the command and control and opt keys. There's also even things like on Windows, you're used to finding tools options, and on Mac, it's the app, the menu with the name of the app, then preferences.
You're right.
So a lot of folks coming to Mac for the first time get tripped up by some of those.
Right. You don't realize those metaphors that are embedded in your brain. You're just used to looking in certain places, and they're not there, and then you're lost.
Right.
Yeah, those are the more like obvious fundamental ones, but there are a lot of like smaller scale ones, just in the ways that like tab focus behaves between controls and just like the
focus
scale.
Shifting.
Yep.
Drag and drop.
Yep.
Pretty much behave the same or different.
Drag and drop is pretty much the same.
Okay. Yeah. So
Finder is like the Windows Explorer.
Right.
It's
more naming differences than it is being really that different. Although, just in generally the relationship with files in a Mac different from the relationship with files in Windows.
I got to tell you, I used to know a lot of Apple people who didn't even know what a file was, and they just don't think that way. They don't work with a file system. They work with documents.
That is true for a lot of Mac apps. It's not really something you can get away from when you're programming, because you have your project with all the files in it.
Yeah. So it's not like that for devs.
Right.
No matter what you're programming.
I still have to use. I use the Mac side of my MacBook for any time I want to do video streaming, because the Thunderbolt interface and the hardware that supports it, like the Blackmagic Designs things, there's nothing that can touch them on the Windows side.
Still the best.
Yeah, they're just great.
Yeah, and it's sort of the base. You're going to compare Windows Movie Maker to GarageBand and tools like that. They just the default set for Mac. They always set the bar hard
sort of
there.
Owns all of the creative stuff, and they have pretty much attained parity between the Mac versions and the Windows.
Yeah, once upon a time, if you cared about Photoshop, you had to have a Mac. That's not true anymore.
Yeah,
so the balance is a little bit different. I guess that part of the challenge there, if you're going to build actual Mac software and Studio for Mac, is you've just got to think through: is this got the right metaphors? Is this something a Mac person is going to like, or say a Windows person built this?
Yeah, and it's not really dissimilar to writing mobile apps for iOS and Android, where you have different idioms and behaviors. and expectations on the
control
different
locations
platforms.
and
And speaking of that, the mobile development experience with Xamarin on Visual Studio for the Mac is really the experience. From what I hear, it's a much better experience than Visual Studio for Windows. Mostly in part, I think, because that's Miguel's preferred development environment for iOS. So you're bound to have just a better experience.
That may have been true at one time, but but we've been investing very heavily in the Windows side to try and make sure that they do have a similarly great experience on both sides.
Yeah. So what's new in the mobile space, the Xamarin space on Visual Studio Code?
So in our latest release, we now have support for automatic provisioning of iOS devices. So you no longer have to download provisioning profiles and configure those on the portal.
That's nice.
You can just set your team, and it will configure those and download and install them for you. And when you change entitlements for your app, for example, it'll update the provisioning profile to have the new entitlements.
Oh, that's great.
So it's really simplified that, because that was kind of something that no one really understood.
Right. Not even Apple, probably.
Yeah, there were literally 2 or 3 people on our team who understood that. But now you don't have to understand it, which is
really
a big improvement.
No,
Yeah,
I thought that was a bit of ceremony when I was first using it.
And is that just for finalizing to send to the store? Or is that actually part of your normal mobile dev cycle on an iOS device?
It's for the dev cycle.
Right.
You do need a provisioning profile that's been signed by Apple to be able to deploy the app to the device and run it there. Mm-hmm. We also have support for the new free Apple development account, so you can do iOS development without paying for an Apple subscription now.
Nice.
You would still need one to publish, but at least you can get started without.
Well, and it's all about getting around that iteration quicker. Are the iOS emulators good enough that you don't really need to test on the phone, or is it important to get on a phone?
They are very good, but it's called a simulator because it's not actually emulating a device. It's literally just running the iOS controls on Mac OS.
Right.
So the performance characteristics are very different. Mm-hmm.
You're not really getting a good feel of what it's going to be like on the phone.
And you can't even interact in the same way if you want to test out how the touchscreen UI behaves, because Macs don't have touchscreens.
Yeah. That's getting weird now.
Yeah. Unless you're using Visual Studio for Windows, where our iOS simulator, which we remote from the Mac to Windows over that Mac host connection. If you have a Windows machine with a touchscreen, you can interact with the simulator with that touchscreen. It's super cool.
I remember Miguel demoing that at a build. Was it 2 years ago or something?
Yep.
And it was all about, and he actually described it as, I'm trying not to swivel my chair as much.
Yeah.
But the idea that you had a better iOS dev experience on Windows, you sort of thinking, how did we get here? This is weird. But I don't know what it's going to take for Mac to finally make a touchscreen. Come on.
I don't know. It sounds like they don't want to. It seems to me they don't want to compete with their iPads and all of those other things.
Well, isn't the rumor now that they're just going to let Mac OS go entirely, and it's going to be iOS in a desktop format, in a laptop format?
I've heard a lot of different rumors, but I honestly don't know anything about what they're doing there.
Apple's not one to provide rumors, right? So who knows where stuff's coming from? They keep it pretty close to the chest. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually comes to pass.
Yeah.
Hey, you give Microsoft credit. They've pretty much stuck to making one operating system, and clearly
Multiple
Apple's
flavors.
making 2, at least 2. So and it's got to have some consequences to it.
Is there anything new on the Android side? Visual Studio Mac?
Yes, on the Android side, we have a new Android device manager, which makes it super easy to create Android emulators, and that supports installing the Hexam virtualization. And so with the latest version of the Google emulator, your devices can start up pretty much instantly, which is a big improvement of the old 10, 20 second, 30 second boot times.
Yeah. And you are saying emulator deliberately, not simulator.
Yes.
This is Android code running in a specialized environment.
Yep, it's an entire it's an operating system running inside a hypervisor.
Right.
Nice.
So you get it seems to fail the same way, even if the performance isn't completely symmetrical.
Yeah, you still have the same kind of performance. It doesn't have the same performance characteristics as a device, and of course, if you want to like interact with the screen or the camera or anything, a device is still definitely something I would recommend testing with a device frequently and definitely before you ship.
Yes, please.
Do you still have to separately manage your Android SDK versions, or does it automatically download the latest SDKs for you?
That's now mostly automatic. We developed our own Android SDK manager, and that's fully integrated. And when you open or create a project that uses a component you don't yet have installed, it'll install that automatically for you now.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of plumbing that we need, especially with all the moving parts.
Well, it still strikes me that the iterative cycle of development through an Android device is a little quicker than it is through an iOS device.
Maybe
for a
on
device,
Windows.
On Windows for sure, because on Windows you have to remote to
a Mac.
To the Mac. Yeah, we find that a lot of developers who are targeting iOS first prefer the Mac because you kind of don't have that.
Right, you don't have that extra jump.
Yep.
And that I'm more and more. Maybe it's just 'cause I'm getting old and grouchy about this stuff.
What do you mean getting?
Nice. Thanks for that. That's great. It's that time around that cycle. You know, if I was directly supervising dev teams, especially in mobile right now, like I'd be timing that cycle because I think it's the basic gauge of productivity for how long it takes to build features and things in mobile development.
Yeah, well, we do see teams where you have the folks who are working on the iOS side work on a Mac, and on the and for the Android side they work on Windows.
Right.
And because you can just share the same solution across both, it makes that really easy.
That's good. Yeah, and it does speak to, if you're going to do iOS first, you really do want to be on that Mac and work that particular way. I just went to poke at Xamarin Cloud, you know, that great test lab you guys have got, and now it's called Visual Studio App Center. They actually redirect the old site onto appcenter.ms. I wonder what .ms actually is. Did Microsoft grab themselves their own TLD?
I don't know.
Yeah. But it's...
Mississippi.
There you go. Not the .ms.
Come on.
Okay.
It's a joke. Huh? That's why it's funny, because it's ridiculous.
I'm doing my best, man. I'm trying to keep up. You're fast today. I think I do.
It's the coffee.
Do you... have you played with App Center much? I mean, obviously that's where the test cloud is. There's a bunch of other things there too.
Yeah, I've played with it a bit. I mostly spend my time working on tools rather than building apps, so I don't do that much like direct app development myself. But from what I've seen, it's a really neat solution how it integrates all of the things that you need for an app, your build, your testing, your data collection, and analytics, all in one place, and it's super easy to get started with that.
And it seems to me that this is just sort of an essential part of that mobile development pipeline, that getting beyond just the iteration of the basic code inside your machine, as you start thinking about maintaining an app over time, getting some, Android's still fragmented. It's not as bad as the Froyo days, but it's still fragmented.
Yeah, it's super important for any app to have all that stuff. Make sure that you're running your tests and tracking like the issues your users are seeing out in the wild on devices that you might not be able to test with locally.
I'm still using a OnePlus 3 because, I don't know, deep down I hate myself. But it's far enough off the beaten path of Android now that every so often it's just an app just misbehaves. It just gets kind of weird, and you're like, okay, I'm in OnePlus. They do their own custom build of Android. It's like, go get a reference phone. Or Samsung.
Yeah, I generally stick with a Pixel myself.
Yeah, bare metal Android.
Yeah.
I can't argue them. My favorite. When I think back to my favorite Android phones, it's like Nexus 4, Nexus 5. Never owned a Pixel yet. Wife's got one though. She sure likes hers. But it's like the closer you get to what the original intended Android was, the fewer problems you have. It seems.
You definitely seem to get updates faster.
Yeah.
At least.
You're sort of on top of that part and kind of know what's going on.
Yep.
Although I think this was a previous show, but we did go down the path of, I'm now being a Buddhist about smartphones in the sense that all smartphones are suffering. We just have to deal with it.
Yep.
You can say all smartphones suck, but they're still the business that we're in and the opportunities that we have, and people are tethered to them.
Yeah, it's really hard to get by in the world today without a smartphone.
No,
yeah.
I don't know how they would. It's kind of nuts. But there are worse problems in this world. And as soon as you stop expecting your phone to be great, you're a lot happier. Ever since I gave up hope, I felt so much better.
That sounds like a good state of mind.
Yeah, I like it. What about Xamarin Forms? Continue to evolve?
Yes, certainly. So we've been talking about the new Xamarin Forms 3 here at Build, but there's also on the tooling side, in Visual Studio for Mac, we switched the templates over to use Net Standard 2 now for your shared code. So that enables you to access a lot more APIs from that shared code than you could from PCLs. We've also done a lot of work on improving the IntelliSense experience for XAML.
Which is challenging. There's a lot to that. I do appreciate moving over to XAML standard. PCL was a good idea until the number of platforms got large, and this is actually a more efficient way to continue to grow.
Yeah, the whole all the different permutations of PCLs, whether they were the intersections of different platforms, meant that a lot of them ended up pretty small. And now we have Net Standard, where all of the frameworks that you can use in VS for Mac. .NET Core 2 and the 2.1 release candidate, and Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, Xamarin Mac, Azure Functions, Unity 2 all support Net Standard. So you can write one library and share it across all of those platforms.
And you can expect it to just work and to be pretty code compatible with your Studio for Windows guys, and they're all Net Standard 2 as well. It's interesting you mentioned Unity, because of course that's like the mobile gaming tool.
Sure.
Yeah, it's very popular, and we have really great support for working with Unity projects. So you can attach to a Unity game and debug it. We have IntelliSense for all of the Unity specific APIs.
Right. Has Unity always been codable in the Mac, or was it just a purview of Windows?
It's been on the Mac as long as I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now it's Visual Studio for Mac's a good representative of Unity as well?
It's a great way to write your Unity game code and debug it while you're running your game and testing it.
So I bet your users really love TypeScript, IntelliSense. That must be great. Do you get a lot of feedback from your users about those things?
We haven't had much feedback on TypeScript yet, because we did just release it on Monday.
Yeah, it shipped on Monday. It's Wednesday.
But yeah, the goal of that was to really round out our ASP.NET Core 2 development story.
Yeah.
So you can write your backend and your front end. We have the HTML and CSS and Razer and TypeScript. So
it's great.
All of the pieces you need.
Awesome.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is now?
It must be that happy time again.
Yeah, it's time to play a little game. Guess the recipe. What am I making? Combine 3 Oreos, 40 grams of nougat, 2 marshmallows, a lollipop, half a cup of jelly beans, an ice cream sandwich, and scoop it all on top of a piece of toasted gingerbread. Combine it all, and what do you get?
Incompatibility.
Diabetes.
They are all candy.
Just saying. It's actually time to give away a D-Experience subscription from our friends at Developer Express to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. Everyone knows DevExpress has great desktop controls, but their web tools are awesome. They have this collection of HTML5 JavaScript controls called DevExtreme. And at the heart of the product line are these really powerful controls like grid, chart, pivot grid, tree list, and scheduler. But DevExtreme also comes with more than 50 touch-optimized client-side controls, data visualizers, navigators, editors, lists, dialogues, and notification controls, and general-purpose controls like a filter builder, range slider, file uploader, scroll view, and more. Now, since they're all HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS, they include integrations with things like jQuery, Knockout, React, Ionic, and Angular. Plus, DevExtreme controls come with ASP.NET MVC and ASP.NET Core wrappers, so they're infinitely flexible. But don't take our word for it. Go for a test drive at dx.netrocks.com. That's dx.netrocks.com.
All right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner is Simon Dalbaka.
Congratulations, Simon.
Yeah, congrats.
Golf clap for you.
Barat just walked by and took a picture, so we just continued applauding.
Keep applauding at him. We're not applauding for him.
We're applauding for Simon, and Simon
Yes.
just won the D-Experience subscription, a big pile of awesome from our friends at DevExpress, just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you'd like to be a member, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world, and every show we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December, we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But you got to sign up to win. And we like to ask our guests too, Mikayla, you know this, we've done this before. If you had $5,000 to spend on technology today, what would you buy?
Whew, that is a tough question. Last time I'm pretty sure I said hammers
Hammers?
for my
For your
silversmithing.
silversmithing, yes.
Right?
This is a surprisingly tough question. I'd probably buy a lot more pieces for my home automation setup.
Okay.
What stack you going down?
So I'm running a Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi.
That's good stuff.
And I have a Z-Wave USB stick and a whole bunch of Z-Wave components, but also a Philips Hue and a whole bunch of Hue like light strips.
Wow.
And so it's fairly bare bones right now. So I'd love to have like automatic like blinds rollers and all that kind of stuff.
Fun stuff.
too.
Stuff that just comes up automatically. I've been doing home automation long enough now that I have technology deployed through my house, and I'm literally talking lighting control systems that have not only are no longer in business, there are none left on eBay.
Oh no!
And so I'm gradually, as they are cooking off, so these are Triac smart dimmers with scene controls and things like that, and I've got low voltage lighting and things wired to them, and so they fry after a certain amount of time, and I'm gradually been migrating it out. So I finally committed to a new set, which I know will, now that I'm comfortable with the, hey, you only get 15 years of life out of some of this stuff, I'm going down the Lutron Casita line. And why is my wife accepting this? Bloody Google Go control. The fact that she could use her voice to turn the lamps off and on, that got her happy. And the mobile app is nice enough that used to be configuring scenes with such rocket science. It's like, only I could do this. So she'd sit in a room and I would turn lights up and down until she finally happened, then I'd program the scene. And then we'd do another one.
Hey, let's annoy our listeners. Okay, Google, turn off the lights. Hey, Siri, format my phone. Alexa, shut the windows. I don't know.
Oh, you're such a bad man. Anyway, that's where we are.
Oh, look.
And look,
My phone does
your phone's trying to turn off the
It's
lights.
trying to turn off the lights.
Hey, wait, so is mine. I blame you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
That was just a little
these
funny.
are problems. But it's fun. It's good to get automation in place and start to see your house being a little smarter about what you want.
It's super cool.
As I'm getting more lights switched over and testing things, I'm doing stuff like being able to write if this, then that against Nest detecting I'm walking down the hall and going, oh, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's turn the overheads on at 10%. So just a little bit of light so you don't stub your toe. So that kind of stuff is, you start to get synthesis of all those bits together. And with $5,000, I'll get you a lot of loot. There's a lot of gizmos there.
I really like the hue lights because I can just make my entire house look like a 3D rendering test scene.
Nice.
I've used those like, hey, it's Halloween. Everything is orange and purple. And oh no, it's Christmas. Everything is red and green. Like you can really go kind of mental with that color shifting. And yeah, they're great. They're great bulbs. They're very, very good looking bulbs. And yeah, your bulb's got a Wi-Fi. It's, IP addresses for light bulbs.
Yeah, probably part of a botnet.
Yeah, but
Probably. So what haven't we talked about VS Mac-wise?
One of the other big things that we announced on Monday was that we now have a Team Foundation version control extension for Visual Studio for Mac.
Wow.
So it's currently in preview, and you can install it from the extension gallery. It's early days, so we'd love to hear everyone's feedback on that. But this was our number 2 requested item on user voice, and we heard that feedback. We heard that it was important to folks, and we made it happen.
Wasn't the old way to come in through Team City? Like there was a way for Mac developers to contribute in. But it wasn't through Visual Studio for Mac, so. There's a separate app you can use, but folks really want that integrated into their you're building
IDE.
out Visual Studio for the Mac. It should have that same sense of integration.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Just another member in Team System. Yeah, that's a long road to hoe. There's going to be a lot of pieces to make all it work. You could always push to GitHub and then have VSTS pick it up, but that's not the same. All right, that's cool.
That is very good.
Support for Azure Functions.
That is very exciting too. So that's been in preview since Build last year. At Build last year, the preview was very kind of bare bones, running on a port of functions to the Mono runtime, which wasn't really supported. But now it's running on .NET Core 2.
Right.
So you have full support for local debugging, a right-click, add new function wizard that lets you pick a whole bunch of standard function templates.
Yeah, all those different trigger options.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
It's nice to have that stuff enumerated, and it's also great to have it checked into source control and just sort of managed like it's any other piece of code.
Yep.
What's on the horizon? What are you working on now, then, that you can talk about without killing me?
So I don't have any features to announce right now, but we are continuing our ongoing work that we've been doing on performance and reliability. In the 7.5 release, we actually halved the startup time.
Nice.
And
cool.
Improved solution load time, and all sorts of changes, things like running analyzers concurrently so results show up faster. There's lots of little improvements all over the place, and that's something that we're focusing on right now. I'm sure there will be more than that.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, it's good to see that you're just continuing to support the product and make it better and better each rev.
You guys are already into Core 2.1. Now they're talking about Core 3, although that's just proposals, really. They've clearly got miles to go yet, so I'm sure you'll stay with them.
Yeah, that I expect that to be fully supported when it comes out. We fully support .NET Core 2.1 release candidate that came out on Monday. So you can already be right on the cutting edge of that. So we plan to keep up.
Excellent.
You mentioned in the blog post, and we really haven't talked about this on .NET Rocks, but all the GDPR regulations that are coming into effect probably around the time this show's published in the EU. Is there really something you can do in code to help us, or in the tooling to help us with trying to be compliant?
I'm honestly not sure. All of my experience with GDPR is that it's very situational. It depends on what exactly you're doing, and a lot of the difficulties have been kind of figuring out what to do rather than doing it.
Well, the main thing seems to be every website telling you they use cookies.
Yeah.
That seems to be the main thing.
Yeah, I see that everywhere.
Yeah, there's plenty of other rules. And over on RunAs, we did a show last year on GDPR and just sort of ran down this, the right to be forgotten, the right to know what information you have, those kinds of things. But the tool vendors aren't going to save us. It's up to us to actually write good code, protect data properly. A lot of this is just process. I'm personally excited that the EU is going to levy serious fines on companies who have data breaches and cover them up. It's as long as you're honest with your customers and you're sort of out there doing the right thing, you'll be fine. They're not saying you can't have a data breach. They're saying you can't be irresponsible when you do.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to leave you off the hook on that one, Mikayla. You can't save us. I'm glad you don't think you can.
I wish I could.
Yeah, could we have an easy button for that one, please? We are GDPR compliant. Thank you. But nope, It's a lot of work. That's all there is to that, no question.
Is there anything else that we missed that you want to talk about?
Let's see.
Did we just kind of breeze over the sort of the Razer JavaScript TypeScript implementation? I mean, IntelliSense is one piece of it, but that's not the whole thing.
Well, it's there. That's the big news.
That was a major piece of work. That's something we've been working on for the past year. because in order to port those from Windows, we had to do a lot of work on the infrastructure of the text editor and the way that we integrate Roslyn. So we were working with about 4 different teams and making changes in all of those code bases and synchronizing it. And because Razer is like it brings so many things together in one place. Like it looks so simple, but it's actually really incredible that you can just combine your C# and HTML like that.
It just works.
Yeah.
It's one of those things when done so well, you just take it for granted. It's magic.
Yep.
Essentially. So yeah, I imagine it was a ton of work for you guys, and it looks good. Not that I've used Studio for the Mac, but I'm looking at the screenshots and things. It's like that looks like IntelliSense. It looks like Razer Code.
Well, I'm sure everybody's really excited to be downloading it and using it.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to hearing everyone's feedback on like what they like, what they don't like, and what they think we should be doing going forwards.
And is there already a 7.6? I think you said
there
that
is a 7.6 preview that was released on Monday as well.
Okay.
That does contain some performance and reliability improvements. The only new feature it contains right now is that code folding is now turned on by default.
Cool.
That's something we've always had, but because it was turned off by default, a lot of people didn't realize it was there. They didn't even go looking for the preference. So we gave that a visual overhaul, so it like looks a lot better now.
So code folding just a contracting code into that's an old feature.
It is, and we've had it
for ages,
forever.
But because it wasn't in there originally, you left it off by default.
It was turned off in preferences by default.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you just had to go in and turn it on, but now you don't. Now you're expecting the new developers will just have it.
And so if anybody's got feedback for you, they can just tweet you?
You can tweet at Visual Studio or tweet at MJ Hutchinson to reach me directly. We also have our developer community site where you can report any problems you run into. You can access those via the help menu, report a problem, provide a suggestion, and we read all of the feedback we get, and it does really help to inform our priorities and direction going forward.
Great. Well,
I'll include the link to the User Voice Visual Studio for Mac page because I know where it is.
Awesome.
I can give you some links for that.
For sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Mikayla. Thanks for spending the time with us. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got a transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a